Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Mena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Dalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasa Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we will continue. This is 35th sloka from third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmat swanushtitat swadharme nidanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. It's very, very amazing sloka. Similar kind of a sloka is there in Srimad Bhagavatam also, which we often cite in the Gita course. So that is Swadharmacharanam Shaktya Vidharmacha Nivartanam Daiva Labdena Santosha Atma Vicharnachanam. So it's like very much similar to that. It's the shloka says, it is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though futilely, than another's duty perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duty, for to follow another's path is dangerous. Okay. So one should therefore discharge his prescribed duties in full Krishna consciousness rather than those prescribed for others. Materially prescribed duties are duties enjoined according to one's psychophysical conditions under the spell of modes of material nature. Spiritual duties are as ordered by the spiritual master for the transcendental service of Krishna. But whether material or spiritual, one should stick to his prescribed duties even up to the death. Okay, so there was a space, aircraft, something is going on. Anyway, so here we see that it's a very important thing. In this world, comparison makes a lot of problem. So somebody is doing some service and that is so nice, and I have been given a service which is something which is very low and which is not very great and things like that. So this comparison is a biggest problem, so here Krishna is telling this very wonderful instruction that one should stick on to one's duty, how much ever difficult it is or how much ever easy it is, or it is great or it is not very great in the eyes of the common people, whatever it may be, one should just stick on to his own duty. And here Prabhupada introduces us to two kinds of duties. One is material duties, another is spiritual duties. So material duties are designed based on one's psychophysical conditions. So we have a broad classification of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So if Shudra thinks like why only a Brahmana is given respect, and why only he is supposed to study the scriptures and he is supposed to teach, no, why not I? No, or if Shudra thinks that no, why only a Kshatriya should rule, and everybody is glorifying him as a king and things like that, right? So it is necessary, a particular kind of a psychophysical condition is necessary, a particular kind of modes of nature is necessary to do a particular material service, material designation, to get material designation. So Brahmanas are ones like who have got sense control, So because they have sense control, they can instruct others. So because if a person doesn't have sense control, then he should not take the risk of instructing others, right? So it may be very nice to see that, oh, somebody is instructing and it's people are listening to him and things like that. But if sense control is not there, then rather than making anything better in the other person's life, we will only ruin or we will only create havoc in the other person's life. So it's very important that the brahmana should do the brahmana's job, and then the kshatriyas, so they are administrating and they are having control of things. But then when there is a problem, they will also face the problem, they will also stand for the problem and things like that. If a shudra is given that position, when there is a problem, he'll run away. He will not be able to handle the problem, right? So it is not just one sided. It's a kind of a psychophysical condition is required for particular kind of an activity. So, and we should not be depressed also, oh, why I don't have such capacities as the other person is having. So it is just the modes of nature that we have acquired, and whatever nature we have acquired, we will just work according to that. So it doesn't matter like whether we do this work or that work. It is the ultimate thing is the destination that we are going to reach. So if a train that is going to what is that a particular destination, and the person who is traveling in second class, first class, everybody will go to the same destination. So it doesn't matter which class we are, according to our capacity, we have bought a ticket, in a train, and then the train is going to take all of us are going to go back to the spiritual world if we are sticking on to our duties and then be satisfied and execute Krishna consciousness. So then we are definitely going back to the spiritual world. One very important thing that Krishna mentions is like he becomes happy by seeing a devotee who is satisfied. So Krishna likes those people who are satisfied with themselves and satisfied materially, right? And then dissatisfied spiritually, like spiritually, like they want to achieve more and more. But then materially, okay, whatever is there, it's they are just satisfied, and they just need to work something. So they just use their propensities, whatever is there. If somebody is a good cook, he just does the cooking, and if somebody is like good in studies of scriptures, then they can study and they can explain. And if somebody is good in doing some small service, like they can do that small service. So it doesn't necessary that everybody needs to be a superman to do everything. It is not necessary. So here it's nicely put that this everybody is engaged according to their psychophysical nature, and based on the modes of material nature. So that's the material duties. And spiritual duties, all of us have spiritual duties like chanting the names of the Lord, studying or studying the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and then being engaged in the service of the Lord. So this is all spiritual duties. So spiritual duties must continue, and that is also whatever has been given to us by our authorities or by spiritual master. So we should be just satisfied with that. So in that way, we should not think, we should not compare why this service is nice, more nice, and this service is not that nice. So we should not make distinction like that. So whatever has been given, so we should do it with full enthusiasm. But whether material or spiritual, one should stick to his prescribed duties even up to death, rather than imitate others' prescribed duties. Duties on the spiritual platform and duties on the material platform may be different, but the principle of following the authorized direction is always good for the performer. When one is under the spell of modes of material nature, one should follow prescribed rules for his particular situation and should not imitate others. For example, a Brahmana who is in the mode of goodness is non-violent, whereas a Kshatriya who is in mode of passion is allowed to be violent. As such, for Kshatriyas, it is better to be vanquished following the rules of violence than to imitate a Brahmana who follow the principle of non-violence. It means like if there is a battle is there and he knows that he's going to lose, but still, a Kshatriya, like if he's challenged or if there is a need that is there that needs to be addressed, he has to come in front and fight. Just like Jatayu, he perfectly knew he's no match to Ravana. If he goes and attacks, like definitely Ravana will kill him. So but then Mother Sita is being kidnapped and he has to do something. So he went and fought. No, that's a principle. Like no, Kshatriyas generally, like, they do this thing, even though they know that they are going to lose, they are fighting a losing battle. Still, no, they will not step back from their duty. So no, it is only these days like we have this analysis of what is the result is going to come, and no, in the Vedic times, no, result is secondary. Primary is the duty. What's the duty, and that needs to be performed at any time. Right? So everyone has to cleanse his heart by a gradual process, not abruptly. However, when one transcends the modes of material nature, one is fully situated in Krishna consciousness. He can perform anything and everything under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master. So here Prabhupada nicely puts, when we are within the modes of material nature, we have to follow the prescribed duties, according to the modes of material nature. So now a Brahmana should follow his Brahmanical nature, and Kshatriya should follow a Kshatriya nature, and things like that. And with that, they can engage in devotional service. And by doing this, what happens is the heart is getting cleansed. Now I am engaged according to my propensity, and I am doing Krishna consciousness also. So in this process, the heart is getting cleansed. And once the heart is completely cleansed of all the modes of material nature, then he can do anything and everything. He's not bound by a particular set of qualities. So he can do anything and everything, under the direction of bona fide spiritual master. Right? So all the time we need, so we should always understand we are a dependent entities. No, Krishna is the master and we are all dependent entities. No point in time we are going to become as free as that key, like I'll do anything and everything as I wish. So then that is atheism. So Krishna consciousness means that we always want to be under the shelter of a master. Always we want to be under the shelter of either the Supreme Lord or the bona fide representative of the Lord, and we want to render service. Service means we need to have a master. So there is no meaning of service without a master. And if a service means that is meant, that is done for the pleasure of somebody, it is not that, no, I like this, so I'm doing it, so that's okay. No, that's kind of okay, this one. So we should go to the platform of, no, Srila Prabhupada likes this and Krishna likes this, and no, my authorities like this, and no, I want to do for that sake, for their pleasure. So then we make tremendous advancement in Krishna consciousness. Then we actually situate ourselves in the position of a servant, to the Lord. Okay, in that complete stage of Krishna consciousness, the Kshatriya may act as a Brahmana, or a Brahmana may act as Kshatriya. In the transcendental stage, the distinctions of the material world do not apply. For example, Vishwamitra was originally a Kshatriya, but later on he acted as Brahmana, whereas Parashuram was a Brahmana, but later on he acted as a Kshatriya. Being transcendently situated, they could do so, but as long as one is on the material platform, he must perform his duties according to the modes of material nature. At the same time, he must have full sense of Krishna consciousness. So we have to perform our duties according to modes of material nature. Why? Because that is when we will be peaceful. No, for a Kshatriya, if you ask him, you should not, when there is a problem, you should not fight. You should just simply watch. He will go mad. For a Shudra, you tell that, you should, you should go and face a very difficult situation. He will go mad. Right? So this cannot be exchanged. So the duties according to one's material nature is just so that he can be peaceful. No, that's the whole purpose. So, but then peacefulness is not sufficient. We have to purify that particular mode of nature, and then we have to go to higher modes. How will we do that? By executing Krishna consciousness. So one is to keep ourselves at peace. Another is to change the modes of nature, and then completely finish off the modes of nature. Once we finish off the modes of nature, in any condition we are happy. No, always we are happy, because as like I don't have any what is that anything that is holding on me for doing something. Material nature are there, then just to satisfy the material nature I have to do some material work. So then if material nature is completely gone, so then it's always a person is fully blissful. So he just need to execute Krishna consciousness at that time. Okay, text 36. Arjuna uvacha atakena prayuktoyam papam charati purushah anichanapi varshneya baladiva niyojitah. This is a very, very wonderful section, right from this sloka till the end of this chapter. It's going to be really wonderful and very practical. Hope we will finish it today only. We will try to finish this section, whole section today. It's very, very practical application of something very important for us. Let's see. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? So many times people say, no, like, no, why did you do this? So then I didn't want to do, but then somehow some force, it was like I was pushed into it. No, so Arjuna is asking that, like, why is that we are feeling like I don't want to do sinful things, but I'm doing it as if I'm pushed into it. So then purport: a living entity as part and parcel of the Supreme is originally spiritual, pure, and free from all material contaminations. Therefore, by nature, he is not subjected to sins of material world. But when he is in contact with material nature, he acts in many sinful ways without hesitation, and sometimes even against his will. As such, Arjuna's question to Krishna is very sanguine as to the perverted nature of the living entities. Although the living entity sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act. Sinful actions are not, however, impelled by super soul within, but are due to another cause, as the Lord explains in the next verse. So we many times hear this sloka: Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So the Lord is a Sarva Karana Karanam. What is the cause of anything and everything in this world? Like, no, it is the Lord. No, Sarva Karana Karanam. And here it is specifically, no, what is the cause for me to do sinful actions even if I'm not willing to? Sarva Karana Karanam, so Lord should be the cause. But then here, no, in this case, he is not the cause. So something else is the cause. Let's see what is the cause. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Kamayesha Krodayesha Rajo Guna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyenam Iha Vairinam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with material mode of passion and later transformed into Vard, and which is all devouring sinful enemy of this world. So here the Lord is telling it's, he's putting the blame on the lust. No, it is lust means too much of attachment to enjoy something which is not my property. And what is my property? Nothing is my property. Everything is property of Lord. So trying to enjoy the property of Lord is called lust. Like if somebody is glorifying us, saying, oh, you did such a wonderful thing, right? So we will see that in the later in Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna is telling yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam srimad urjamam eva. So in that sloka he mentions that wherever you see anything wonderful, you should understand it is caused because of my power. No, Krishna is telling that everything is working on based on his power. So now somebody is telling that, okay, you did something very wonderful, and then I start enjoying that, oh, actually I did something very wonderful. That is called lust. That is it is because of Krishna's power, and glory should go to Krishna. No, in between, okay, so Krishna acted through me. No, I did something wonderful because of Krishna's mercy, and so through me Krishna had did something wonderful, and some glorification is coming for that. No, then I should offer it back in the same channel to the Lord, right? So that's the main thing. So anything that belongs to the Lord, if we start enjoying it, then it becomes lust, right? So and it's just a simple thing I was just mentioning. So in that way we can see in every action, like in so many different actions in our day-to-day life, we may run into this thing. And no, that is why no, we are dragged into sinful activities, and that's why we are dragged into difficulties and things like that. Okay. And Krishna will also go to very practical aspects. Where does this lust sit, and how can we conquer over this lust? No, that is also mentioned very nicely. Okay. We'll see this. It is lust only, Arjuna. Okay, we did this thing. And when a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. It's a very powerful statement. So some people ask, like, why is the lust so powerful that it is not allowing me to do Krishna consciousness? So, like, the answer is the most powerful force in the entire creation is love of Godhead, and 180-degree opposite of that is lust. The negation of that is the lust, and lust must be the most powerful force in the material world because it is the direct opposite to the law of Godhead, which is the most powerful force in the spiritual world, right? So this, if like inverse of an infinity is negative infinity, right? So in this way, like the inverse of you just inverse 1 crore into into -1, then it is just -1 crore immediately. So that's why the lust is the most powerful force. It's very, very difficult to overcome that. This tendency to enjoy separate from Krishna. It's very difficult to overcome that. Okay. Or in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, the lust is unsatisfied. It turns into Varth. Varth is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues the material existence. Right? So this, if you remember, we studied this thing, what Prabhupada is writing here. We studied this in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, in the Sthita Pragya section, where we saw that dhyayato vishayan pumsa sangachete subhajayate sangat sanjayate kamat krodha vijayate krodat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibrama smriti bramshat buddhi nasho buddhi nashat pranashyati. So when I contemplate on the sense objects and I want to enjoy the sense object, so then if that desire is not satisfied, then anger comes, then delusion, then after that, like, no, gradually we fall to the no lowest state. So that is a equation of fall. Okay, therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of living entity, and it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in material world. Varth is the manifestation of mode of ignorance. These modes exhibited themselves as var and other corollary. Okay, these modes exhibit themselves as varth and other corollaries. So we see that mode of passion is lust, and mode of ignorance is varth or anger. No, anger comes, we are in mode of ignorance, and mode of passion means like I want to enjoy. No, so that's like mode of passion. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being dragged into mode of ignorance, is elevated to mode of goodness by prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of Varth by spiritual attachment. Okay, so there is going to be a nice solution for this. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expanded himself into many for his ever increasing spiritual bliss, and the living entities are part and parcels of this spiritual bliss. So we have often studied this thing, how the Supreme Lord expanded into many, like he has Swaamsa expansions, that is his own personal expansions as Vishnu, no Matsya Kurma Varaha, like many this one. So they are called, Vishnu Tattvas are called Swaamsha, and we the living entities are called Vivinnamsha, right? So separated expansions. And why did he expand in so many ways? Just to expand the spiritual bliss, no? And we are part and parcel of the Lord, and we are parts of that spiritual bliss. So then why are we suffering? No, it's because we have detached ourselves from the Lord. No, that's why we are suffering. So they also have partial independence, but by misuse of their independence, when the service attitude is transformed into propensity for sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. This material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill these lustful propensities. And when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about their real position. So after a long time of trying to enjoy this world, like, no, they have tried all permutation and combination and they're not getting satisfied anywhere. And they start inquiring, like, no, where do I get the actual bliss? No. So then they come to the point of, no, this inquiry is beginning of the Vedanta Sutras, wherein it is said, Atata Brahma Jignasa. Now that you have tired with all the material, no sense gratification, now you inquire about Brahman, no inquire about the Supreme Lord. So once we are tired with all permutations and combinations of this material sense gratification, we start inquiring, okay, no, what is it? No, like I want to progress spiritually. One should inquire into the supreme. So that's the meaning of this atata brahma jignasha. Actually, it is therefore, no, inquire into supreme, like that it comes. And the supreme is defined in Srimad Bhagavatam as Janmadi Asya Yato Anvayaditaratascha. The origin of everything is the supreme Brahman, no, Janmadi Asya. So okay, therefore, the origin of lust is also in the supreme. If therefore lust is transformed into love for the supreme, or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desire everything for Krishna, then both lust and worth can be spiritualized. Okay, Hanuman, the great servitor of Lord Rama, exhibited his worth by burning the golden city of Ravana. But by doing so, he became the greatest devotee of the Lord. Here also in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord induces Arjuna to engage his worth upon his enemies for the satisfaction of the Lord. Therefore, lust and worth, when they are employed in Krishna consciousness, becomes our friends instead of enemies. Right? So here, this sloka, Krishna tells, Kama yesha, Krodha yesha, Rajo guna samudbhava, Mahashano, Mahapapma, Vidyenam, Iha Vairinam. He tells that these are the greatest enemies. These are the two great enemies of the whole world. All of us have common enemies. Right? So, like somebody who has common enemies, they become friends. So, friends because of common enemies. Okay. Text 38. Dhumena virjathe vaknir yatha darsho malena cha yatol bhena bruto garbas tata tenedam avritam. As fire is covered by smoke, as the mirror is covered by dust, as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. It's a very nice analogy. So the first is given is the fire covered by smoke. When fire is there, smoke is there, and even through the smoke, you can actually see the fire. No, so the smoke is covering it, no, but it cannot cover the fire completely, right? So the covering is very, very thin. Next example is mirror covered by dust. When the dust covers the mirror, you cannot see the mirror. But then if you wipe the dust, very easily you can wipe off the dust. And then embryo covered by the womb, that is even more thicker covering. So you cannot just wipe off, we have to wait for the child to come out. So it's very, very solid covering actually. So in the same way, the lust, there is a thin covering of lust for some people, and there is a little more thicker covering of lust for some people, and there is like really very thick covering for some people. And when the lust is too heavy and too strong, then a person becomes a tree. So in the tree form, like a living entity is there. You kick him, he doesn't feel anything. And there is rain, sun, and things like that. He doesn't feel anything. Like he just stands there. There's like too much heavy covering of lust is there on them. So too much of lust, we become manda. We become very, very dull. And then very thin covering of lust, we become very active. That's the this one over here. Okay, purport. There are 3 degrees of covering of the living entity by which his pure consciousness is obscured. This covering is but lust under different manifestations like smoke in the fire, the dust in the mirror, and the womb about the embryo. When the lust is compared to smoke, it is understood that the fire of the living spark can be a little perceived. In other words, when the living entity exhibits his Krishna consciousness slightly, he may be likened to the fire covered by smoke. Although fire is necessary, when there is smoke, there is no overt manifestation of fire in the early stage. This stage is like the beginning of Krishna consciousness. The dust on the mirror refers to the cleansing process of the mirror of the mind. So, by so many spiritual methods, the best process is to chant the holy names of the Lord. The embryo covered by the womb is an analogy illustrating a helpless position, for the child in the womb is so helpless that he cannot even move. This stage of living entity can be compared to that of the trees. The trees are also living entities, but they have been put in such a condition of life by such a great exhibition of lust that they are almost void of all consciousness. The covered mirror is compared to the birds and beasts, and the smoke covered fire is compared to the human beings. In the form of a human being, the living entity may revive a little Krishna consciousness, and if he make further development, the fire of spiritual life can be kindled in the human form of life. By careful handling of the smoke in the fire can be made to ablaze. We all know, like, when there is fire is there, and if we want to, especially when we use the sambrani and things like that and all, we put and then we fan the fire, right? So we call it fan the spark, right? So fanning the spark. So if you fan it, so supply a little oxygen, then the fire will, grow very nicely. So in the human life, we are like this fire covered by the smoke, and then if we can actually kindle the fire a little bit, then we will be able to, what is that, you know we will be able to make the fire to set ablaze. The Krishna consciousness can come with full force, actually. Therefore, the human form of life is chance for the living entity to escape the entanglement of material existence. In the human form of life, one can conquer the enemy lust by cultivation of Krishna consciousness under able guidance. Okay, text 39. Avrutam jnanam ethena jnanino nitya vairina kama rupena kaunteya duspurena nalena cha. Okay. Thus, the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust. He's mentioned that Kama Rupena Kaunteya Jnanino Nitya Vairena. No, for the people who are, no, for everyone, and especially for the people who are trying to escape the cycle of birth and death and go to the spiritual world. No, for them, this is the enemy. Nitya Vairena, lust is the enemy. And no, in the next sloka, we will see where does this lust sits. No, anyway, so here Krishna is mentioning that thus the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. Just like when you put fuel into the fire, how much ever fuel you put inside, like its fire is going to only grow. It is, you cannot say, okay, fine, the fire is asking for some fuel, I'll give some fuel, then it will become satisfied. No, fire will never become satisfied. The more fuel you supply, more it will ask for more fuel, right? So that way, like, how our senses, if we want to gratify our senses, more we supply sense gratification, the senses will demand more. No, you give me more, like that. Okay, purport. It is said in the Manusmriti that lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment, just as fire is never extinguished by a constant supply of fuel. In the material world, the center of all activities is sex, and thus this material world is called as Maituna Agara, or a shackle of sex life, or a jail, or a prison of sex life. You just put the living entities inside this material world and then create man and woman and create a feeling of sex between them. That's it. Nobody wants to go out of this world. Even we go and say that, hey, like, you are getting so much of difficulty in this world, you are going through so much of miseries, take up to Krishna consciousness and go back to the spiritual world. And people say, no, this world is so good, we will stay back. It's like, so it's how much ever beatings we may get, people get satisfied because this is a prison house, and this prison house it doesn't have any bars around. But then this is the prison bar. The lust is created and nobody wants to go out of it. In ordinary prison house, criminals are kept within the bars. Similarly, the criminals who disobedient to the laws of the Lord are shackled by sex life. Advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of material existence of living entity. Therefore, this lust is the symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within the material world. While one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually the so-called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer. Right? So it's like, every sin has a taste. It's like, every this one. So it's like Krishna consciousness is full bliss, but then the sense gratification is a little bliss, and then little, very very little, satisfaction a person may get, and then it just binds him to that particular activity. Right? So this not only limited to this, It applies to our eating process, it applies to our sleeping process, it applies to everything that we do in the material world. So it applies to everything, you know. Okay, text 40. Indriyani mano buddhir ashyadishtana muchyate eter vimohayatyesha jnanam avritya dehinam. So here the senses, the mind and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, the lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. So, if we have an enemy, so the next question is, where does he live? No, where is he? I want to attack him. So, you know where does he live and how to attack him. So, if we know this, then we can conquer the enemy, right? So, that's the thing that Krishna is mentioning. So, where does this enemy sit? So, it sits on senses, mind, and intelligence. So the senses wants to enjoy something which is like no the tongue wants to eat something which is not offered to Krishna, and it just sees something like in the street somebody is doing some nice preparation, and we want to have it. So the tongue is like hankering for it, and then the eyes want to see something which is not in connection to Krishna consciousness. So like that, every sense wants to enjoy separate from Krishna, and the mind is thinking to enjoy separate from Krishna, and intelligence is making plans to enjoy separate from Krishna. This is where the lust actually sits. Okay, purport. The enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul, and therefore Lord Krishna gives hints to those places so that one who want to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is the center of all activities of the senses, and thus when we hear about the sense objects, the mind generally becomes the reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification, and as a result the mind and the senses become the repositories of lust. Next, the intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next door neighbor of the spirit soul. Lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire false ego and identify itself with matter, and thus with the mind and senses. Okay, identify itself with the matter and thus with mind and senses. So, like we identify ourselves with the matter, or we identify ourselves with the mind, or we identify ourselves with the senses, right? The spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. This false identification of the spirit soul is very nicely explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:84-13. यस्यात्म बुद्धि ही कुनपे त्रिधातुके स्वधि कलत्रादिषु भौम इज्जति यत्तीर्थ बुद्धि ही शलिलेन कर्हिचित् जनेष्व अभिज्ञेषु स एव गोकरः. So this is like Yashatma Buddhi. Atma Buddhi means Atma means like self-identification. Atma Buddhi means like no, I have a kind of self-identification. What is that self-identification? That is Kunape. It's a bag. Who am I? I am a bag. There's no Kunape. What does that bag contains? It is Tridhatuke. It contains like Kapavada and Pitta, like mucus, bile and mucus, bile and fire. So Kapavada Pitta, so, like and things like that. So this is or air. So these three dhatu. Like these three in Ayurveda, like we talk about this Kapavada Pitta. So like if in the material consciousness, if we are asked like who am I? No, I'm a bag of mucus and air and bile and things like that. So it's like so when we go to the technical details of it, it appears to be like quite foolish. But then when we call it in a very nice name, I'm a king of this world, or I'm so and so great person of this world. It appears to be very nice actually. So, but then what are we telling? Like we are just the bag of this Tridhatu. And Swadi Kalatradishu Bhauma Ijjadi. So it's like, here we will read the translation. A human being who identifies this body with the three elements with his self, who considers the byproduct of the body to be his kinsman, right? Swadi Kalatradishu. So that means like those which has come from my body or who are related to my body, they are my relatives. Prabhupada says that there are so many people suffering in this world, but then a man is worried about few people in his home Why? Because they are related to him with his body. So otherwise, like, everyone is a living entity and everybody is suffering. Like, we should care about everybody. So why only these people? Because they are related to me, through my body. So they have some relationship with my body. So Swadi Kalatradishu. And then Bhauma Ijjadi, so who considers the land of his land of birth worshipable. Oh, like, no, I have born in this land of Bharat. So, no, Bharat is very great. Why? Because I am born. So, and then a person who's born in Pakistan will say, like, no, my motherland is like great. And then a person who's born in America will say, like, my motherland is great. And everybody, wants to worship their land of birth. This is completely material. And who goes to a place of pilgrimage simply to take bath rather than meet men of transcendental knowledge. So Prabhupada often says that he's from Calcutta. So he says that Ganga flows even in Calcutta, but then people will take trouble to go till some faraway place, Rishikesh or some place like that, and then they'll take bath in Ganga there. So what's the point? Like, holy places means to go and meet some spiritually enlightened person and to take knowledge from them. So that is the main purpose of Tirtha Yatra, not just to take a holy dip in some river or something like that. So it is to meet some saints and to take spiritual knowledge. So that is the purpose of holy trip, right? So these people who have this perverted idea, that is like this I am a bag of Tridhatu, and then all that is all those other bags which are connected to this bag, they are my relatives, and wherever I am born, that land is worshipable. And then I also go for some Tirtha Yatra to take bath somewhere in the far. No, that is so. Those people who have got such kind of this one, so they are considered to be like ass or a cow. That means they're as good as an animal. So they're not even human beings. Okay. So text 41. Tasmat tvam indriyanyado niyamya bharatarshava pap papmanam prajahiyenam jnana vairen jnana vijnana nashanam. So Krishna is mentioning, therefore, O Arjuna, the best of Bharatas, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So lust means there is no knowledge. It's like it just and it just the sense gratification and Krishna consciousness doesn't go together. Sense gratification means we are killing Krishna consciousness, right? So that's how it is completely opposite. It is so that's why Krishna is telling that from the very beginning, identify this enemy and control. And how do we control? By regulating the senses. So we should all understand the senses and mind and intelligence are our enemies. Many times we say that this I like it. Why I do this? Because this I like it. And who is that I which likes? Your mind likes it. And your mind is not your friend. Don't serve him because he likes it. So we should say that okay, it is to be regulated. Like somebody would like to sleep for 8-10 hours. Then say okay, the mind likes to sleep so much, but then we say like the scriptures say we should ideal is like 5-6 or 6.5 is the maximum. So that's how much you should sleep. So then it is not liking, the body is not at all liking, but then we have to regulate. No, this is it. No, you have to do this thing. And somebody is thinking that like he wants to eat indiscriminately. So then either he should regulate or he will get some disease in such a way that the doctor will come and regulate. The regulation, either forced or voluntary, he has to choose. So this regulation is a very important thing. Every sense has to be regulated. So, and we have also options in Krishna consciousness for regulating all the senses. In the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, again in the Sthita Pragya section, we were kind of reading this particular aspect that Ambrish Maharaj pastime, Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayor Vacham Shivai Kunta Gunan Varnane Karo Harer Mandira Marjana Adishu Shutim Chakara Chata Sat Katodaye Mukunda Lingalaya Darshana Drisho Tad Bhritya Gatras Parashanga Sangamu. So in this way, like we see that Now, for every sense, there is a like alternative in Krishna consciousness. There is something that we can do in Krishna consciousness. So we should engage in Krishna consciousness in that way and regulate the senses. And because the lust sits there. So if we think, like now we have this book marathon, so if we think that how I can distribute this Bhagavad Gita, so then intelligence is used in service of Lord. So then lust cannot sit there, no. And mind, intelligence, and senses, like if we are using our physical senses also, like seeing and using our hands, using our physical energy for service of the Lord, so then all the senses are also engaged in service of the Lord. So then lust cannot sit there. So then we have vacated lust. Till the time we are engaged in the service of the Lord, we have vacated lust from the system, right? So then it becomes very powerful. No, that's how we can regulate and we can actually purify our senses. Purport: the Lord advised Arjuna to regulate the senses from the very beginning so that he could curb the greatest sinful enemy, lust, which destroys the urge for self realization and specific knowledge of the self. Jnana refers to knowledge of the self as distinguished from non self. It's a very nice definition. We can kind of, or in other words, knowledge that the spirit soul is not the body. So, this is actually jnana. Knowledge, wherever we come across this word knowledge or jnana in the spiritual texts, we should understand it is referring to Brahma jnana. So that is like I am spirit soul different from the matter. So that much of understanding is the beginning of knowledge. Anything below that is somebody is like very good in mathematics, somebody is very good scientist. It's all ajnana. So he's very good in ajnana, but he doesn't have any jnana. Jnana means what? I am spirit soul. I am not this matter. That's the beginning of knowledge, right? And then Vijnana refers to a specific knowledge of the spirit soul's constitutional position and its relationship to the supreme soul. It is explained thus in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.31. Jnanam param guhyam me yad vijnanam samanvitam sa rahasyam tad angam cha gra grana ghaditam maya grihana gaditam maya. Okay, so the knowledge of the self and the supreme self is very confidential and mysterious, but such knowledge and specific realization can be understood if explained with their various aspects by the Lord himself, right? So if you all know that what is this section 2.9.31, it is very close to the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. We were in the second chapter 9, the second kind of 9th chapter, we were studying Chaturshloki Bhagavatam, right? So there, Krishna is mentioning that the knowledge of the self and the supreme self is very confidential and mysterious, but such knowledge and specific realization can be understood if explained with various aspects by the Lord himself. And we are so fortunate. We are reading Bhagavad Gita, which is explained by Lord himself, right? So this is jnana. Okay, Bhagavad Gita gives us that general and specific knowledge of the self. The living entities are part and parcel of the Lord, and therefore they are simply meant to serve the Lord. This consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. So, from the very beginning of life, one has to learn this Krishna consciousness, and thereby one may become fully Krishna conscious and act accordingly. Lust is only the perverted reflection of love of God, which is natural for living entity. So lust is quite natural for living entity, because if we turn our face against, away from the Lord, then obviously we'll be in lust. No, it's quite natural. But if one is educated in Krishna consciousness from the very beginning, that natural love of God cannot deteriorate into lust. When love of God deteriorates into lust, it is very difficult to return to the normal condition. That's the case of all of us. So we are trying to return back to the normal condition of Krishna consciousness, right? Nonetheless, Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulative principles of devotional service. So, from any stage of life or from the time of understanding its urgency, it's very, very nicely put by Srila Prabhupada. So, from any stage of life or from the time of understanding of its urgency, one can begin regulating the senses in Krishna consciousness. devotional service of the Krishna consciousness or devotional service of the Lord, and turn the lust into love of God at the highest perfectional stage of human life. Right? In text 42, I think this is the last one. Indriyani paranyahur indriyebhya param manah manasastu para buddhiryo buddhes paratastu saha. Okay. The working senses are superior to the dull matter. The mind is higher than the senses. The intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. So the hierarchy is given. The dull matter is there, and superior to that is the senses, and superior to senses is the mind, and superior to mind is intelligence, and superior to intelligence is soul. So this is the hierarchy. So the senses are different outlets for the activities of lust. Lust is reserved within the body, but it is given vent through the senses. Therefore, the senses are superior to the body as a whole. The body as a whole is a material entity, but then the senses are the vent through which the lust actually comes out. Okay. These outlets are not in use when there is superior consciousness or Krishna consciousness. So the lust cannot be vented out like when there is when we are engaging the senses in Krishna consciousness. So in Krishna consciousness, the soul makes direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the hierarchy of bodily functions, as described here, ultimately ends in the super soul. So superior to soul also is super soul. Bodily actions means functions of the senses, and stopping the senses means stopping all bodily actions. But since the mind is active, then even though the body may be silent, at rest, the mind will act. We all have experience, even in the sleep, the mind is like fully active. It just goes on, right? And as it does during dreaming. But above the mind is the determination of the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul proper. If therefore the soul is directly engaged with the Supreme, naturally all other subordinates, namely the intelligence, mind, and senses, will be automatically engaged. The Katha Upanishad, in the Katha Upanishad, there is a similar passage in which it is said that the objects of sense gratification are superior to the senses. That means the matter, like any material thing, is superior to the senses, and the mind is superior to the sense objects. Um, if therefore the mind is directly engaged in the service of the Lord constantly, then there is no chance that the senses will become engaged in other ways. This mental attitude has already been explained. Param drishtva nivartate. Again from second chapter, this is. If the mind is engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is no chance of its being engaged in the lower propensities. In the Katha Upanishad, the soul has been described as Mahan, the great. Therefore, the soul is above all, namely the sense objects, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. Therefore, directly understanding the constitutional position of the soul is the solution of the whole problem. With intelligence, one has to seek out the constitutional position of the soul and then engage the mind always in Krishna consciousness. That solves the whole problem. A neophyte spiritualist is generally advised to keep aloof from the objects of the senses. But aside from that, one has to strengthen the mind by the use of intelligence. If by intelligence one engages one's mind in Krishna consciousness by complete surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then automatically the mind becomes stronger. And even though the senses are very strong like serpents, they will be no more effective than the serpents with broken fangs. But even though the soul is the master of intelligence and mind, and the senses also, still, unless it is strengthened by the association with Krishna in Krishna consciousness, there is every chance of falling down due to agitated mind. Right? So, if we want to progress in Krishna consciousness, we have to diligently engage our mind, intelligence, and senses in the service of the Lord. And then we should develop attraction to that over a period of time. Then we are safe. Right? Text 43. Evam buddheha param buddhva samstabhyatmanam atmana jahish shatrum mahabaho kamarupam durasadam. Thus, knowing oneself to be the transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should study the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence or Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. Okay. Purport. Now we see that once again we'll see the translation. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence. That is, the soul is transcendental to all these three. O mighty armed Arjuna, one should study the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence. No, that is Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer the insatiable enemy known as lust. Right. So now let's see the this one purport. So Prabhupada is going to give a summary of this third chapter, looks like here. So this third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is conclusive directive to Krishna consciousness by knowing oneself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without considering impersonal voidness the ultimate end. In the material existence of life, one is certainly influenced by the propensities for lust and desire for dominating the resources of material nature. Desire for overlording and for sense gratification is the greatest enemy of the conditioned soul. But by the strength of Krishna consciousness, one can control the material senses, the mind, and intelligence. One may not give up work and prescribe duties all of a sudden, but by gradually developing Krishna consciousness, one can be situated in the transcendental position without being influenced by material senses and the mind. By steady intelligence directed towards one's pure identity, no, by steady intelligence directed towards one's pure identity. This is the sum total of this chapter, right? So it's very, very nice gist is offered, right? So it is mentioned that, like we will just see desire for overloading and for sense gratification is the greatest enemy of the conditioned soul, and by strength of Krishna consciousness one can control the material senses, the mind, and intelligence, and one should not give up his material duties abruptly. No, he should do his material duties and parallelly do Krishna consciousness, and as he becomes purified he gains complete control over the senses. And that is why the sannyasis are called as Goswami. Goswami means one who has got control over his senses, right? So such people are called Goswamis. Okay. In the immature stage of material existence, philosophical speculation and artificial attempts to control the senses by the so-called practice of yogic postures can never help a man towards spiritual life. He must be trained in Krishna consciousness by higher intelligence, right? So the yoga asanas and things like that, they can help, or they can give a little bit of relief from this what is that stop from the material engagement. But then since we don't have a higher taste of Krishna consciousness, so the yoga process in itself cannot take us to a higher levels. So attachment to Krishna and Krishna consciousness is very, very important, as Prabhupada mentions here, right? So thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport to third chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of karma yoga, or discharge of one's prescribed duties in Krishna consciousness. So now we see this last section that we studied about the lust and where does the lust sits and how to conquer this lust is a very, very practical thing, right? And we saw that this is the greatest enemy of everyone in this world. And this such wonderful book, we are studying every day, and if we can somehow or other like give this knowledge to others, then it becomes really very powerful. So if we can actually, in this month of Gita marathon, so if we can distribute this Bhagavad Gita to as many people as possible, imagine people come in contact with this wonderful sublime message of Krishna consciousness, so their lives will become really very amazing, right? So that is what we should try to do. And today I will try to send one sample message. No, yesterday I couldn't able to do. Today I will try to send one sample message that you can forward to like anyone whom you speak to. You can edit this message as you like. So the message content would be like this: that in this auspicious month when Gita was spoken, so we want to distribute all over the world. We want to distribute 2 million Bhagavad Gitas, and all over the world, all ISKCONs put together. We have a great yajna that is to be performed on in Kurukshetra on 25th of this month on the Mokshada Ekadashi, and all those who take Bhagavad Gitas or take part in this spreading of this Gitas everywhere, anyone who helps in this whole process, so their names will be offered in this yajna, and it is very, very auspicious. On the day, on the tithi when the Gita was spoken, on the place where the Gita was spoken. So this yajna is going to be performed. So it's really very auspicious. So, and we will all try to do something, towards this direction. So we should try to contact people who are there in our contact list, whom we know, and who we whether they will like it or not. It doesn't matter. We should just simply reach out to as many people as possible, and give them an opportunity to access this wonderful Krishna conscious literature, the Bhagavad Gita, right? So with this, we will end today's session, and we will shortly, after some time, I'll send you a message and some directions how to go about, right? So thank you all for taking part in this reading session every day. Hari Hari, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.